Hey guys, today we are giving you our fantasy football quarterbacks and tight ends to avoid. We'll show you how to win your league by winning your draft. Let's get this fantasy football podcast started right now.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fantasy Football Upside. I am Justin. Kyle bobs his head, he does a little drums, he does all the things. He does all the things. Thanks for dropping by our Fantasy Football Podcast and YouTube channel. Now we've had another content-filled week for you all as we've been giving you the players to avoid on draft day. Monday we had some running backs to avoid. Tuesday we had some wide receivers to avoid. Definitely check those out in the links in the description below. Kyle, can you do me a little pointing?
Yeah, it's over here.
Boop.
Boop, boop, boop.
But once again, we are going to hit you with quarterbacks and tight ends. We're going to combine this. And these are the ones you're going to want to avoid on draft day, everybody. These are great players, but based off where they're getting drafted and how we want to construct our rosters, we're most likely not going to have any of these guys on there.
Yeah.
What you got?
Not gonna have any of these
Not going
guys.
to draft this one.
Yep. All right, guys. So hang around. Make sure that you're hanging around because near the end of the podcast, we are going to talk about how you can get a hold of our draft kit for free. It is full of tons of information. And once you get that draft kit for free, anytime we update it, any new edition that we send out, we're going to send out to you as well. So hang around toward the end. We're going to talk about how you can get that one for free. And let's dive in headfirst into the shallow end, get right on it right away. Here we go. Our QBs to avoid. We've got our first two players here, QBs. For me, Jalen Hurts going 10th pick, 7th round, 13th QB off of the board. That's just entirely too high for a lot of QBs, especially one who has not proven that he could play at this level. So for me, I'm continuing with my theme this week, and that is avoid the Eagles, apparently. So last year, Hurts averaged 52% completion. That's terrible. Absolutely terrible. And then you toss into it that he's not even a lock to be the starter day one this year, right? And I actually, when I saw that Flacco went there, I was kind of like, well, I think it's 50-50 that it ends up being Hurts or Flacco. I think that it's 50-50 either way. And so maybe 52% works in Jalen Hurts' favor this time, right?
I see what you did there.
Yeah, waka, right? So look, this offense in my mind is going to be rough if he's the guy behind center, and I think that in general it's going to be tough. But a lot of people are drafting Hurts for his rushing upside, and they forget that rushing QBs usually do pretty terribly when the passing game is so bad that defense is just key on the run, right? If you can't hit more than 50% of your passes, they're not going to care whether or not you are the QB or a running back. They're just going to go after you like you're the running back.
Yeah.
So I don't see why, they're just going to constantly have an extra man in the box. He's going to struggle to get any running game going, and then you're going to fall into negative game scripts. He's going to have interceptions a lot of times because he's going to be underthrowing balls because he's not very accurate. It all gets really bad there. Look. This is the scenario that caused Lamar Jackson to fall back to earth a little bit last year, which is that teams decided that they just were not going to focus on him being a passer. They saw that he rushed so much and they went after him being a rusher. He is much more accurate than Jalen Hurts is by a long number. He is much more accurate, much better quarterback than running back in the end. And he is a very good running back. Hurts, he could be a very good running back too, but that might be what he is actually in the end, as a running back. In my mind, Hurts isn't worth the price. He's definitely not, and he's definitely being taken way too early. 7th round is ridiculous for a quarterback who's not going to be an elite player in my mind. The difference between QB1, QB12, usually not enough to justify spending the early draft capital. I think you can do much better than picking up Hurts by waiting around and taking a bunch of players who are still available at the moment that he is being taken. And that's Baker Mayfield, Sean Watson. Now those are two question marks. You got Kirk Cousins, Mr. COVID warrior. But then you still have Roethlisberger and Fitzpatrick hanging around. And I think that both of those guys are going to be extremely valuable. I like Fitzpatrick a whole lot this year. And I would absolutely take Fitzpatrick ahead of Hurts in my mind. So
I think the preseason, I really want to see both these quarterbacks on the field whenever, not at the same time, of course, that would be pretty terrible to see that. But
well, I actually think that would be appropriate. Put Flacco at QB
Jesus.
and put Hurts as running back because that's what people think that he's going to be valuable as.
Oh boy. I want to see the preseason though. I want to see if there's anything changed. But yeah, they're very non-committal. I mean, Nick Sirianni, the new coach, very non-committal to Jalen Hurts. I mean, it's not like his regime drafted him, so I wouldn't see why not. But it's not, there's not a new GM or anything like that. It's still Howie Roseman, I believe, right?
I don't know. I think so.
I think they've kept the GM. So. But no, I get it, man.
I got the impression, though, that this is his last hurrah, I think, if I remember correctly last year. That this is pretty much it for him. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, let's head on over to your QB.
All right, speaking of last hurrahs, man, this might be the last time we see this guy in Atlanta Falcons jersey, but it's Matt Ryan of the Atlanta Falcons. He's going third pick in the 11th round, 16th QB off the board. Number one reason why he's a player for me to avoid. He no longer has Julio Jones. I mean, that was Matt Ryan's safety valve, and now he is with the Titans. He played 40. I mean, there's actually a good sample size when it comes to how many games that Julio Jones and Matt Ryan did not play in the same game. 42 games. And in those, Ryan scored 2.9 fewer fantasy points per game. That is quite a bit when it comes to a weekly fantasy. I mean, that could definitely lose you a game very quickly. Number two, the new head coach of the Falcons is former offensive coordinator of the aforementioned Titans, which is usually a offense coordinator that has been very much run heavy offense in the Titans. Granted, right now, the personnel when it comes to the Atlanta Falcons is not quite set up as what he had in Tennessee, but I still think he's going to bring those run heavy schemes to this offense. Reason number three, efficiency was extremely lacking in 2020. I mean, he threw up the most attempts and had the most completions, yet he still finished as just the 12th best quarterback in fantasy. That, I feel like, is really hard to do, to throw it that much and still complete that many balls as being leading the league and only finish as the 12th best quarterback in fantasy. I mentioned this right at the beginning when I started talking about Matt Ryan. This might be the last hurrah for him in Atlanta Falcons jersey. It's just one of those things. New regime coming in. I mean, this team needs to most likely just strip it down and rebuild. So when it comes to our 2020 power rankings, which is the brainchild of Kyle, he was our 13th best quarterback. So he finished kind of right where he was, total number of points, but he had 7 startable finishes, 2 elite games, but he had 6 busts. I mean, almost as many busts as he did startable finishes. That's pretty tough to count on.
Tough for anybody not named Keenan Allen.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're talking about quarterback on this one.
I know that. I'm just saying, like, as far as like the startable finishes versus busts. Yeah.
But man, this guy could eventually end up in the Hall of Fame. I mean, it is very possible. He's got an MVP. He's going to have so many yards, but I'm really surprised they did restructure his contract just to keep him there. So, but this is the last hurrah for him and the Falcons, I believe.
Yep. This is the 28-3 moment for his career in the Falcons. You think?
Too soon for him, I'm sure.
Too soon. All right. Let's talk about tight ends. Let's have you go first here.
All right. We're going to talk about Hunter Henry, New England Patriots. Hard not to say the Chargers on that one. But 7th pick in the 8th round, 10th tight end off the board. And, I mean, that's what our ADP is going right now as of this recording. Somehow he's going as the 10th tight end off the board. But, Kyle, ask me if you've heard of this. Henry left practice early with an undisclosed injury. That happened just this last Sunday. Have you heard Hunter Henry injury? Have you heard that before?
Yeah. That rings a bell a few times.
It rings a bell. I mean, he's played a good amount of games, but he just can't stay healthy for the entire game as well. The guy has been blessed with just extreme athletic ability at the tight end position, but he's just never been healthy enough to count on him for a season-long fantasy. Maybe if you want to mess around with daily fantasy, possibly, but season-long, drafting someone that you're trying to draft as a tight end 1, you just can't count on him. Here's another thing. The last 2 QBs he's played with, Phillip Rivers. I mean, he loves throwing to tight ends about as much as he loves having kids. And then also, he had the stud Justin Herbert last year. So he goes from those two, gets paid in New England. Hats off to you, Hunter Henry. And he goes to a muddled QB situation in Cam Newton and Mac Jones. We don't know who really is going to be the starter this year. But, I mean, you just go from those two quarterbacks to what is at New England. That's going to be pretty rough. And Kyle, elephant in the room, the tight end room. Jonnu Smith was also brought in to join the tight ends. And even though the Patriots have produced two fantasy-relevant tight ends in the past, that was with #Twommy, but I don't really think this is quite the offense that they're going to be running. You know, the 21st century, the 2021 New England Patriots, I believe, are going to be a run-heavy offense, not a pass-heavy offense like they were back with Tom Brady. So I feel like that's how they're going to try to control the game, is on the ground, and that just does not spell good fantasy opportunity for Hunter Henry. And that's why he is my tight end to avoid. I feel like he's actually going to keep stumbling, especially if some sort of injury comes out from that coming out of the Sunday's practice, man.
Yeah, I think so. And I think you're right. This is going to be a run-first team mostly. I think that's what Belichick's intention is. You have to remember that the majority of Belichick's success and the Patriots' success was not tied exactly to Tom Brady. I'm not saying he's not, the GOAT or whatever. I'm just saying that you take a guy like that and you pair him up with an elite defense repeatedly, and that's what they did. And so I think that you have to remember an elite defense with a really solid running game that's the MO right now. That's what everybody's working for. That's
pretty much the recipe of success. That gets you into the playoffs and could get you a long run.
Defense wins championships, they always say, right? So, All right. And then let's talk about my tight end to end the week here with another Philadelphia Eagle. I've got Dallas Goddard as the tight end I'm avoiding.
The Philadelphia fans just hopped
I'm sure all of them. They're all going to murder me. Look, he's going second pick, 9th round, 7th tight end off of the board. I don't necessarily think that a 9th round pick is a bad spend on him. But 7th tight end, I think, is an overspend there. And I'm just avoiding the situation. I don't think that he finishes inside of the top 12 territory in my mind. Philly is essentially my team to avoid if you've been paying attention all week here. I think some other teams are going to be equally bad, but that you can kind of see them coming. Whereas Philly, I think a lot of people are really hyped about Philly this year, and they're looking at a team that's full of talent, full of opportunity. But I think that they're going to let you down at every turn this season, and so I'm avoiding them. And look, I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper on Ertz right now and give you some statistics. Right?
On Ertz or Goddard?
I'm sorry, Goddard, not Ertz. I've got Ertz here because that's one of the next things I want to talk about, which is that I don't think Ertz is going to make it out of this camp or make it onto the roster here in the end. So I think that Goddard is obviously the tight end 1 on this team. So I think that it's appropriate to draft him as though he is the tight end 1 on this team. I just think it's inappropriate to draft him beyond that. So why? Hurts is going to be throwing the ball to him. And I don't think that he's going to be throwing it enough, let alone accurately, to justify it. I've talked already, 52% completion rate. I'm not going to beat that horse a little bit anymore. We don't need to.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
What was the percentage?
It's 52. Oh, okay. Just over 50%. So look, here we go. Additionally, with a running QB, guess who gets to run fewer pass routes, right? So that's the biggest predictor the biggest metric / predictor of tight end success is routes run. That's how you can predict who's going to be the most effective, the most efficient, is to look at who's running routes and figure that out. Hurts took over during week 13 of 2020 last year. They played 4 games together. Goddard and Hurts played 4 games together. Goddard's routes run in the 4 games before Hurts took over was 20, 33, 36, and 48 routes run with 4 targets in the red zone, right? Hurts takes over, and here's Goddard's routes run. 25, 20, 30, 17, 0 targets in the red zone. I think you're looking at an offense that's going to fall apart. They do not throw the ball. They will not throw the ball enough to justify any particular pass catcher if you're going to have to spend a good amount of draft capital. I'm not betting that anybody in this offense is going to end up as an elite player, a top 12 at their position in my mind. I just think that this is not going to occur. I'm probably in the minority in this opinion. I think Miles Sanders is going to end up being probably a back-end RB2. I think Hurts is going to end up being a mid-level QB2. I think that Goddard's going to end up being a tight end 2, high-end tight end too. But where these guys are getting drafted, I don't think that's where I would want them. Not at all. So I'm avoiding these guys.
You got me rethinking, man.
Yeah, I just think that this offense is going to be anemic in the end. I just don't see how it produces what people are spending in draft capital on these players. I don't see how it does it. Why is I've always looked at Dallas Goddard and thought there's a guy with a lot of potential that I don't see. Like when he's been handed the reins, he's never lived up to the hype.
Right.
And it's kind of like Evan Ingram in a way, right? Except that with Evan Ingram, you could point at what was going on around him often to say, or to him in particular, his legs. But Goddard, he's been a little banged up over his career, but not enough to justify the just lack of performance. And then when you look at the routes run, that has nothing to do with his abilities as a pass catcher. It has everything to do with what that offense wants to accomplish. And that's why this whole week I've been talking about the Eagles. It's because people are drafting them for a particular purpose. And when you really look at what they're going to be able to accomplish based on what this offense is doing already, it's a problem. It's a real problem. I think they're going to try to be run first, and I think they're going to have trouble doing that because the QB can't throw passes enough to keep an eighth man out of the box. So Goddard's going to have to hug the line, and he's going to have to block a lot to make sure that the QB can get outside.
I mean, it is one of those things where, Nick Sirianni, the new head coach, is a Frank Reich disciple who loves to run the ball. And like you said, I mean, you still have to respect the arm.
Yeah.
And if you just constantly have eighth man in the box, it's going to be really tough to keep running the ball if you're getting 2-3 yards, 3 yards, you know what I mean?
Yep.
You just can't keep a drive going like that. And yes, I mean, if Nick Sirianni is going to be anything like Frank Reich, he's going to be very aggressive, but how aggressive can you be whenever it's 3rd and 8?
Yep. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think that if you've got Joe Flacco out there, I think it's actually a better offense in the end. But that's a more traditional offense, and I don't think that they want to run a traditional offense.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
I don't think they do. I think that in the end, I think what we're going to find is Hurts gets the job, and he loses it by week 4, week 5. So I wouldn't spend the draft capital on Hurts, and I wouldn't spend it on these other guys. You're going to have some very, very rough weeks to start the season. You're going to start trying to sell players off. You're going to start making moves on the waiver wire, and then they make a switch of QB, and suddenly these players are going to be a little bit more valuable, and you miss out.
Instead of drafting Goddard, draft Logan Thomas.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, draft Logan Thomas. He's going 2 picks not 2 picks, but 2 tight ends behind him, roughly, I think, on average. Yeah. There's a couple guys back there you can go and grab. Jarwin and Troutman. He's going way back there, like 21 or something like that.
Yeah.
Or tight end 21. There's a couple guys back there that people are just sleeping on completely. Don't spend the capital on Goddard. He's more named than anything just because he's been talked about for so long. And it's because he's got a lot of promise, but again, situation around him ain't good. It just is not good. All right, guys, that's going to do it for our players to avoid this week. If you want to get our draft kit absolutely free, head over to our website, ffbupside.com, and you can order a shirt or a hat. And if you do either of those things, or both of those things if you want, we will send you a code for a free download of the draft kit. Once you download the draft kit, you are going to get every update and edition of it for free entirely, and we will send that right to your email address as well. So head over to our website, make sure you check those out. This is about the window in which you're going to be able to get things and get them before your draft. We've got some really cool shirts. We've got the FFB goat. It's just a goat with FFB on it. And we've also got Zero RB and a couple other things over there that are pretty cool. So check it out, guys. All right, that's going to do it for these episodes. We're going to do some mock drafts and close out the week, and then we'll be back next week to hang out again. All right, talk to you later. Bye.
See ya.